First of all, you've got some challenges related to the fact that users are being required to access so many different software applications. First of all, this can create a negative customer experience. Customers may have to wait for employees to pull up their data in multiple applications to answer what seems like a very simple question from the customer's perspective, where it should be, something quick and easy that the employee should be able to help them with. And instead they might be waiting, several minutes while the employee checks different systems to find the data that they need. Besides that, it also sometimes results in the need to escalate requests to other teams just because the person who's talking to the customer may not have access to that particular application to see the data that they need. And not necessarily because of any compliance issue or anything like that, where the user shouldn't have access to that data. It's just that for whatever reason, they haven't been given granted access to that particular application. And so again, this causes a negative experience for the customers because what seems like it should be a simple request now requires escalation and waiting for someone else to get back to them. But this also causes a negative user experience for your employees. There were a number of studies last year in particular that I remember seeing about application fatigue and how there's a significant mental cost that comes with switching applications throughout the day. So every time you switch software applications that you're using on your screen, which obviously we're all doing hundreds or more times a day, there's a mental cost to that where your brain has to switch frameworks and think about how to work in this application versus the one you were using a minute ago. And so when you multiply that minor mental cost of switching application times doing this thousands of times a day for using all of these different applications, that adds up and can create a really negative employee experience for your users. And also there's a actual fiscal cost where you've got the licensing expenses for all of these different software applications. But you also have the time cost of training your users to use all of these different applications, and not just training new employees to use them, but also ongoing training for all of your employees on keeping up with system updates and things like that as software applications get updated and modified. So you've got the actual financial costs of the licensing and training, and then you've got the more intangible costs of the negative customer experience, the negative employee experience. Outside of that, you also have the challenge that having all of these different applications makes it really difficult to leverage the data that you have. You've got great data sitting in all of these different silos, and you want to be able to use that data for reporting, for marketing, for prospecting, but it's difficult or sometimes impossible to generate the reports that you're looking for because that data needs to come from different applications. And this can result in things like missed opportunities for cross-selling, where your data could be informing you that there are opportunities available to upsell and cross-sell additional products and services to your existing customers and members. But the data that would tell you that is siloed in different systems, and so you're not able to easily identify that. As well as having missed opportunities for streamlining and automating processes. If you're doing things like having your employees or your customers re-enter data across different applications, not only is that a negative experience for that customer or employee, but also there's the risk of someone mistyping something. And the more you're rekeying data, the more the risk of that happening. And also there's just the efficiencies that can be gained by streamlining and automating processes. So the solution that we're seeing more and more banks and credit unions look at for solving these problems is CRM software, customer relationship management software. And it seems a little silly or crazy to say that the solution to having too much software is to add yet another software, I know. But CRM is easy to use, relatively at least. It's easy to integrate. It's easy to customize so that you can fit it to exactly your business needs, and it's relatively inexpensive to license. And so we are seeing more and more banks and credit unions looking at CRM often for the first time. Most of the banks and credit unions we're working with don't have an existing CRM system and are looking to add that into their application architecture. And a big part of that is because of the relatively recent availability of the low code and no code tools that Deneen was mentioning at the beginning. So the ability to really customize these applications has grown by leaps and bounds in the last 3 to 5 years, I'd say, because of low code and no code development tools. So if this is a new term for you, let me kind of back up a step and explain what that means. Traditionally, when you looked to deploy software, there were two options that you had to consider. You either would buy a prepackaged application that had some really specific functions built into it, and was often difficult to customize. So you kind of had to trade off the ease of being able to get this application up and running quickly versus the inability to really modify it in significant ways to match your business needs. Or you could take the other hand and prioritize the customization piece of it and do custom development to build out a solution from scratch, build out the database, build out the front end, and have the system do exactly what you wanted it to do, but have a much more expensive solution, not only in the upfront build cost, but also in the maintenance over time, and the constant reliance on IT to be able to make any sort of changes to that application. Low code and no code tools have sprung up to kind of meet the gap there, to kind of take the best of both of those options and allow you a much more customizable while still quick to implement approach to development. So low code and no code development just means that these are platforms designed to simplify software development by taking away most or all of the actual hard coding or development aspect. In other words, creating tools that you can roll out without having to write any code. And the potential here, or the promise of these low code and no code development platforms, is that anyone can build out these applications to automate their business ideas and processes. So you don't have to necessarily involve IT, or at least not as much as you might for a more traditional software development project, to build out and to maintain and to adapt these solutions over time.